Are you gonna do set and get methods?
Um, yeah, we can do that.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's not really that important, but
Yeah,
you know.
it's not because if you just wanted the fuel, you could just do this. But
Okay.
for encapsulation, um, yeah, you could create your own methods for to get the to print the fuel. And I'll show you like the print function later. So by the way, just a fun fact, if you tried to print plane 2, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't give you like all these nice little data values. It wouldn't say it's like a wingspan model because it doesn't know how to. You haven't told Python how to print out a plane. All it knows is an object. So if you try to do this, um, it would give you a memory location. If you want to look here, it doesn't print out the attributes of the airplane because it doesn't know how to, and it doesn't know what an airplane is. All it knows is you have an object called airplane in the class. But I'll show you how to configure it so that it does do that and it doesn't give you a memory location when you try to print plane 2. Um, and obviously that could be really useful to instead of having to either go through and print each of these um, one by one, or to go through and use a get method for each of these. That's obviously a hassle. So you could just I'll show you how to do a print, and that will print it out for you. So I William, how would I go about? All right. Yeah, let's make some get methods. Yeah, let me make sure I'm doing
Yeah.
it right though.
You just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
there's
Okay.
no. You just like set them.
Yeah, I would have to create a separate one for each of the attributes, correct?
Yeah, pretty
Yeah,
much.
yeah. So it's kind of a hassle. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but like
Essentially.
usually you don't do like the you have to do these get and set methods because you don't want to access the attributes like directly
Yep.
with like plain dot something because that goes into like privatization and like it's not really as secure.
Yeah. Exactly. So, um, what William is saying is we could create a method for to get the wingspan instead of accessing it like this. Instead of going into the airplane and then doing the attribute plane and then its attribute dot wingspan, you could write a method so that you could just get the wingspan of the airplane, and it would just return self dot wingspan, and then you could do this for each of your attributes. You go down model, passenger, location, etc. And what it's doing is, say we wanted to know we created an object, but we don't remember what the wingspan is. You could do plane 2, and then remember dot because you're calling a method, and then get wingspan. And obviously you could assign that to a variable or something. We'll just print it out. And if you see down here, it says 150, which is what the value we assigned it. So yeah, all this method does is it goes to the self, and it returns the object's wingspan, which is what self is. And then for you can have a setter too. Set wingspan self, and then all that would do is it wouldn't return anything because you're setting something, you don't need a value. So, oh, my bad, you would need a parameter here. So the new wingspan will say, you can make that wingspan, it's up to you. Ah, okay. And then you would just do self.wingspan, which is the attribute, and it gets the new wingspan. So there you go. It's hollering at me because I don't have enough spaces, I think. But if we go down here, where were we? Yeah. So we could say plane 2 dot set wingspan, and then we could set the wingspan to your wingspan wouldn't change obviously when you're making a plane unless you like, I don't know, change the winglets or something. But could change it to 125. Say the wingspan got shorter for some reason. And then it's now 125 down here. So what we've done is we created a set method, and then we called the get method to get the new value that we set. And it's kind of doing the same thing here, but as William said, you might not want your clients to go in and have access to all your attributes. So this is a method just to get it, and then set it if you want. But this is the same thing as what we've done here. This would be a set, and then to print it, you would just do print and then put this inside the print. But yeah, you have a constructor, get, set. You have your own function. So those are kind of the basics. We can do a print. Let me just see how I did it here. Yeah. Yep. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so we can go into another special function from this special method. Sorry, functions are first something else, but special method. So it would be what's str? Yeah, str for string, I assume. So now you have a. Now this is gonna allow you to print, and it's giving me. Yeah, so I think. Yeah, these are all the built-ins, but if you want to check it out, essentially what we're doing is we're changing the built-in function because it has a built-in one, but we're now gonna override it to create our own string function. So you might want to so this would just return. You could say like you probably want to do this with f strings, but we'll just do it with concatenation, or yeah, with concatenation, just to so it's easier to see. But the wingspan of the plane is, and then you can do self.wingspan. The model is, and then you just do self.model, and then you could have, I don't know, the location. We don't have to print out everything, but you could theoretically, right? Let's not do that. All right, the location is self.location. Yep. Okay. So we just created a new kind of print method, and if we want to call that on our plane 2 down here, say we've created a plane, we don't need any of this stuff anymore, so we'll comment it out. But remember when we used to print, it would give us a ugly squiggly, it would give us a bunch of symbols as the memory location. Well, when we print the plane now, it should give us what we created. Oh, my bad. I spelled wingspan wrong again. Oh my god, it's like the 3rd time. Okay, let's try that again. Non-string type tuple. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you know what? We'll just to be careful, we'll turn these into strings. Model's already a string, so we don't have to worry about that. Yeah, like I said, you in this scenario the go-to would just use f strings, which I think I've explained in the past, but we could go over that in the future or after this if you want. But you would use f strings for this. You wouldn't like concatenate it. This is kind of a clunky solution. All right, this should work now. Yep. Oh, need some spacing here. So essentially, now that we've created our own print function. Whenever you print it, instead of giving us a memory location, it will print whatever you want it to print, and what it's overriding the original print, essentially. So the wingspan, I spelled wingspan wrong again. Oh my gosh, this is terrible. All right, there we go. The wingspan of the plane is 150 feet. The model is Airbus A380. The location is London. Okay, so now you can print out your function however you want. You could change this to whatever you want. Like I created a card class in Python, kind of similar to what we did in CSA, and my print is a little more complicated because it's going through the deck of cards and printing out each card. So if you guys want to do this in the future as like a side project to create a card class, we did this in CompSci A with Mr. Sarko, but that was in Java. This is in Python. I just converted it into Python. You can see you can do whatever you want for your prints, and for your constructor, it doesn't have to be so bland like we had here. You can have more complicated constructors. You can have all kinds of different methods that you can create, and then you can create different classes on top of each other. And if we want to go into more of that more different stuff, that like the four pillars of object-oriented programming, one of them is inheritance, right? So this would be an example of inheritance. Like you can create, I mean, what inheritance is, you have parent and children classes, and they inherit the functions. So for example, like we have the keyword super here. So like a square is a rectangle, right? So they kind of, I guess you could say the square class inherits the rectangle class's methods. So that's inheritance. But for what we've done is the very basics. So we have a constructor, we have class, we have even a print function now, we have fancy methods, we have a getter and a setter. So yeah, those are the basics. Does anyone have any questions? I think we'll end it there. That was kind of long. It was an hour. That makes sense for object-oriented programming. It's different than what we've been doing. And for example, what a application in programming, this is kind of a more abstract application, but a real world, an actual like application that you might want to pursue in the near future is, let's see, open. So I made a tic-tac-toe game, right, with Pygame, and it was a hassle because I was going through and doing the functional programming because I wanted to keep it like simple, but it ended up not being simple because I did it that way. Where was it? Sorry, this is the wrong one. Open. Okay, where were we? Open tic-tac-toe Pygame. So run this. All right. So if you look here, these are all just functions. There's no classes. There's no objects going on. This is functional programming. Right? We have functions, and then we just have a bunch of different variables. And this can be far simplified if you use object-oriented programming. You could create a button class for each of these boxes. And then in that button class, you could have, say, like a location attribute or a value attribute, like a X or an O attribute. And then you would very easily be able to set up a grid of those with like a list or an array or something, right? And like a list of these button objects that have their own attributes, instead of having to do it with all kinds of different variables and functions and trying to figure it out. You can just create buttons, and then that would make your life a lot easier than what I created. It like kind of object-oriented programming is nice when you want to represent like a real-world board that has separate, different. You could create a button class and a board class and whatever class, right? So that would be like a programming application if you want to wrap your mind around that to start off with. But yeah, that's object-oriented programming.